Welcome to the Wrestling Source, the exclusive YouTube show of WrestlingNewsSource.com. My name's David, and I'll be your host each week as we take a closer look at current events in the world of professional wrestling. This week, is TLC still worth it? Is Sheamus really the right choice for King of the Ring? And what's the deal with John Cena? Let's get started. Good responses as usual to last week's edition of the Wrestling Source, and not just from my buddy Doc Rorschach looking for shots of the Nitro Girls. Good comments on potential surprises at this year's Royal Rumble. Folks have rightly pointed out that while the WWE is stating that Triple H isn't ready for a return to the ring at this point, they also said the same thing about John Cena before his return and Edge before his return. So it is still in the cards for Triple H to come back at the Royal Rumble. Though user Holty does bring up an interesting theory. Maybe we could see Christian come back, win the Royal Rumble, and go after Edge if Edge can take the title off of Kane in the next coming months, setting up a great main event for WrestleMania. A lot of history between those two as well. Could make for some interesting wrestling over the next couple of months and a great main event at WrestleMania. As always, we want to hear your thoughts. You can leave them here on the YouTube screen. You can find us on the internet at WrestlingNewsSource.com, on Twitter at WrestlingNewsHQ, and on Facebook at Wrestling News. We love hearing from you. Let's hear your thoughts and comments on these issues in professional wrestling. The build-up has already begun for WWE's annual TLC, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view, which highlights a match, the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match that has really kind of been the de facto hardcore match in the WWE since their shift to a more PG-rated product. I'm really starting to wonder if the TLC match can really still hold water anymore in the WWE, given the PG environment, and given the fact that the folks that made the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match famous, the Hardys, the Edge and Christians, the Dudley Boys, the folks that really made a hardcore match worth seeing, aren't there anymore. It's really difficult to pull off that kind of a match if you're a bigger guy, because it involves a lot of quickness to make the match interesting, a lot of quickness, a lot of interesting spots to put together with the ladders and the tables, which, as a substitute for hardcore, I guess kind of works, but without that high-flying edge, that edge, no pun intended, that folks like Edge and Christian and the Hardys brought to that kind of a match, I think it really kind of falls flat. It's not the same kind of a thing where you'd blow off a feud with a cage match like back in the 80s and in the early 90s. It really needs to tell a story, and I don't know that with the current crop of wrestlers that are going to be competing in this particular Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view, if they can really pull it off without having it come across as kind of slow and plotting and a spot fest that just involves the tables as opposed to telling a story with all the components involved in that kind of match. We got a preview of that match last week on Raw, as Jerry the King Lawler took on the newly crowned champ The Miz in a Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match at the end of the annual King of the Ring event, special 3-hour Raw to crown a new King of the Ring. And that king this year is Sheamus, and I'm really, really not cool with the WWE making Sheamus their King of the Ring this year. It doesn't make sense. The King of the Ring to me is supposed to be an event that elevates an up-and-coming superstar. We saw that happen in the past with Bret Hart. We saw that happen in the past famously with Steve Austin. We saw when it was supposed to happen with Billy Gunn, and he blew it. This really isn't an event that Sheamus was supposed to win. Sheamus is a former champion. Sheamus now has a reputation of taking out Triple H. Sheamus is a legitimate badass and really didn't need this title as King of the Ring to forward his character at all. It's great to dress him up like we saw this week in a goofy crown and a cape and a scepter and call himself the High King of the WWE in the tradition of the great Irish kings of the past. But are we really just pushing a gimmick with one of what used to be a major event for the WWE in their crowning of the King of the Ring? I mean, Harley Race held this crown, for God's sake. Why are we making this into a gimmicky thing? Even when William Regal won the rebooted King of the Ring a while back, he played it up in a way that made sense for his character. Even though he wasn't an up-and-comer at the time, it made sense the way he played it in character, and I think it's kind of goofy what they're doing with Sheamus and his run with King of the Ring. I don't see how it helps. I don't see how it forwards his storyline with John Morrison, who in my opinion should have won King of the Ring. I don't see how it leads to anything for Sheamus when he's already done so much in his short period of time with the WWE. What are your thoughts on this? I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view, and on Sheamus being crowned King of the Ring. Leave your comments here or contact us from one of our other sources, and let us know your thoughts on these issues. My final thoughts this week are on the angle that they're running with John Cena and the Nexus currently. Now, I'm all for suspension of disbelief. I mean, it's wrestling, for Pete's sake. But they're really asking us to make too many logical leaps here when it comes to John Cena buying a ticket and then hitting the ring anytime the Nexus is in there to make their lives miserable. Anytime we've seen a wrestler get fired in the past, like when it happened with Stone Cold, or when WCW did it with Goldberg, they've always gotten security involved somehow, either preventing them from getting in the ring or getting them arrested, or you know, whatever hokiness that went along with a person who is no longer a superstar getting in the ring just like a common fan would, and they're not doing that. Above and beyond that, they're cueing his music when he runs into the ring. Why would a sound guy have a wrestler's entrance music queued up if he's not with the company anymore? It doesn't make any sense. Now, don't get me wrong. I like what they're doing with it in a setup for dissension within the Nexus. We're saying either Wade Barrett hires John Cena back or they're going to kick him out. But even that gets a little complicated, because what power does Wade Barrett have to hire and fire any wrestler? Once he fired John Cena, that should have been it. I mean, was there some kind of clause in the John Cena joins Nexus contract that said Wade Barrett could hire and fire him at will? I just don't get it. I don't like it. I like what they're doing from a perspective of forwarding the angle with the Nexus and creating dissension in there, but there's just too much disbelief to suspend at this point, and it's really getting kind of silly. Now, granted, it's not as silly as what they wanted to do with the whole Juan Cena Mexican wrestler under a mask thing, which I don't think would have gone anywhere, but this really isn't turning out much better. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you like what's happening with John Cena? And I want to hear your thoughts on everything we discussed this week, from TLC to Sheamus as King of the Ring to all current events going on in professional wrestling. As always, you can leave your comments here on the YouTube screen. You can find us on the internet at WrestlingNewsSource.com, on Twitter at WrestlingNewsHQ, and on Facebook at Wrestling News. Once again, my name's David for The Wrestling Source, the exclusive YouTube show of WrestlingNewsSource.com. See you next Tuesday with another edition.